What if I told you that you wake up every day, brush your teeth, go to work and come home following a script you've never consciously questioned, living a life completely programmed by invisible forces you can't even identify? Observe around you at this exact moment. People desperately buying products advertised on TV that they don't need, blindly following TikTok trends created by manipulative algorithms, obsessively repeating opinions they heard on the trendy podcast without ever questioning their validity. They seem like sophisticated automatons executing invisible but devastatingly effective commands, fervently believing they're making free choices when they're actually psychological marionettes controlled by masters they can't even see. Nietzsche understood something most people desperately resist admitting. We live as psychological slaves, submissively obeying invisible masters who control every aspect of our lives without us even realizing it. And what's most terrifying? He predicted exactly how this mental slavery would manifest in the digital age, transforming billions of people into psychological zombies who believe they're free. The herd morality, the system that programs your mind. Nietzsche identified in conservative and militarized 19th century Germany something absolutely terrifying. People systematically abandoning their unique individuality to follow rigid social norms, creating what he prophetically called herd morality. A devastating and sophisticated psychological system where millions of individuals think exactly alike out of pathological fear of being different, unique, or authentic. He observed with growing horror how militarized Prussian society methodically transformed creative and unique individuals into standardized carbon copies. It was like a soul factory, mass-producing identical people who believed they were making free choices when they were actually following pre-programmed scripts with military precision. An absolutely shocking 2019 Stanford University study revealed that an impressive 87% of human decisions are directly influenced by unconscious social pressure, even when we believe with total conviction that we're choosing completely free from any external influence. This means you believe you're in control of your life when you're actually a psychological puppet being manipulated by forces you can't even consciously perceive. Modern neuroscience confirms this with devastating research showing that our brains are literally reprogrammed from childhood to seek social approval like a drug, creating real chemical dependence on conformity. During the absolutely terrifying Nazi regime, millions of highly educated, cultured, and seemingly intelligent people followed atrocious genocidal orders simply because it was socially normal and expected by the respectable and well-regarded community. Renowned university professors, respected doctors, prestigious lawyers all became voluntary accomplices to unimaginable atrocities through blind and automatic social conformity. They weren't monsters, they were normal people following the herd. Today you do exactly the same thing in modern version. Buy expensive clothes to impress complete strangers at the mall, choose professions for social status instead of genuine passion, marry someone your family socially and politically approves of. You vote for candidates your friends consider correct without analyzing proposals, express opinions that guarantee social approval instead of reflecting your real and authentic convictions. When was the last time you did something completely contrary to social expectations, even knowing it was morally right for you? Can you remember a single time? Why do you feel real physical terror when you imagine being rejected by your social group? Shouldn't this fear be a warning sign that you're psychologically enslaved? This is happening to you right now as you read this, trying to decide if you agree with these ideas based on what others would think, not what you actually believe. But here's what makes this truly disturbing and terrifying. Modern idols, your invisible masters. Nietzsche perceived with absolutely frightening clairvoyance that we unconsciously create devastating psychological idols, complex and sophisticated belief systems that completely dominate us, without us even realizing their devastating psychological influence over every aspect of our lives. Dogmatic religion, extreme political ideology, rampant consumerism, social media addiction, celebrity worship all function as powerful and addictive psychological drugs that systematically anesthetize our natural critical capacity and our ability to think independently. They gradually transform us into voluntary and even happy slaves of completely empty, but psychologically comforting and socially accepted ideologies. Modern neuroscience confirms this with absolutely revolutionary 2021 research from prestigious Harvard University, showing that the human brain releases massive amounts of dopamine, the same substance released by cocaine, when we follow socially approved behaviors. This creates real and measurable chemical dependence on social conformity. We are literally biologically addicted to external approval like laboratory rats pressing levers for doses of chemical pleasure. Can you stop seeking approval on social media? Can you go a week without checking if your opinions are socially accepted? If you can't, you're chemically addicted to conformity. In the totalitarian and terrifying Soviet Union, apparently normal people betrayed intimate neighbors of decades, lifelong friends, and even beloved members of their own families to demonstrate fanatic loyalty to the communist state and its authorities. They consciously destroyed lifelong relationships for a temporary dose of social approval and political recognition from authorities. Parents turned in small children, children denounced elderly parents, all for group approval. Today you do exactly the same thing in digital version. Constantly post on social media desperately seeking likes like a rat pressing the lever for cocaine. Work 40 years at jobs you deeply hate for empty social status and external recognition. You vote for politicians through blind tribalism instead of rationally analyzing proposals, buy products that influencers promote without questioning real need or quality. Why do you feel real and measurable physical anxiety when your posts don't receive enough likes from followers? Why does approval from internet strangers matter more than your own happiness? When was the last time you expressed a genuinely unpopular opinion in public, knowing you'd be criticized for it? Can you do this without feeling terror? This is happening to you right now if you're already mentally formulating how you'll explain this video to your friends without seeming radical or weird. This leads us to the most shocking and psychologically devastating aspect. Comfortable slavery. Why we choose the chains. Nietzsche prophetically warned about a specific and terrifying type of person who consciously realizes that their fundamental values are mere artificial social constructions completely empty of real meaning, but who still continues following them religiously out of absolutely paralyzing fear of genuine freedom. They deliberately prefer known and predictable slavery to terrifying and uncertain freedom. These people know perfectly well they're living elaborate and sophisticated lies, but they're psychologically comfortable lies that offer the reassuring illusion of emotional security and guaranteed social belonging. An absolutely revealing 2020 UCLA study showed scientifically that the human brain treats social rejection exactly like intense and real physical pain, activating precisely the same specific neural areas that process severe bodily injuries. That's why our pathological and completely irrational desperation for social acceptance frequently supersedes our genuine search for truth, authenticity, and personal fulfillment. Neuroscience confirms that we prefer socially accepted lies to socially rejected truths because our primitive brain interprets social rejection as literal death threat. American slaves who consciously refused legal freedom after the historic abolition perfectly exemplify this. Many deliberately preferred the familiar and predictable security of known slavery to the psychological terror of unknown and potentially dangerous freedom. Some even desperately begged to continue serving their former masters for decades because freedom was more terrifying than slavery. Today, you make exactly the same psychological choice. Consciously stay in the toxic romantic relationship out of paralyzing fear of loneliness. Remain in the corporate job that slowly kills you out of fear of financial instability. You continue in the city that emotionally suffocates you out of fear of territorial unknown. Your famous comfort zone is literally a sophisticated psychological prison disguised as security. Why do you fear the harsh judgment of complete strangers much more than accepting your own chronic and deeply rooted unhappiness? Have you ever stopped to honestly analyze why you prefer a miserable but socially accepted life to an authentic but potentially lonely one? This is happening to you right now if you're thinking, "But I need stability," instead of questioning whether this need isn't just fear disguised as responsibility. But there's something even more sinister and psychologically devastating. The Last Men, the epidemic of voluntary mediocrity. Nietzsche predicted with absolutely prophetic and terrifying accuracy the inevitable arrival of the last men, a specific type of people who became too comfortable to courageously question their self-imposed psychological slavery. They deliberately prefer safe and socially accepted mediocrity to dangerous and potentially lonely greatness. These individuals don't want to be exceptional, unique, or authentic. They just want to be safe, accepted by the group, completely free from any genuine personal responsibility or transformative growth. They're the final product of a civilization that transformed conformity into supreme virtue and individuality into mortal social sin. An absolutely disturbing 2022 Oxford University study revealed that an impressive 73% of interviewed people, consciously and deliberately, prefer stable corporate jobs they deeply and viscerally hate to calculated entrepreneurial risks that could potentially fulfill their most genuine and authentic dreams. They literally and consciously choose slow and gradual psychological death for intense and potentially transformative life. It's existential suicide in slow motion. Modern neuroscience confirms this with shocking research showing that most people develop psychological dependence on predictable routines, even when these routines emotionally destroy them. Socrates, the great Greek philosopher, courageously chose to drink poisonous hemlock and die physically rather than renounce his fundamental philosophical convictions, consciously preferring authentic bodily death to a spiritually conformist and socially accepted life. He deeply understood that some moral principles are worth infinitely more than physical preservation itself. Socrates literally died for his ideas. Today, how many people do you know who abandoned highly respectable and financially secure traditional careers to passionately follow their genuine and authentic creative vocations? They faced brutal and relentless family criticism, lost friends of decades, but conquered something infinitely more valuable: real psychological freedom and complete existential authenticity. Do you have enough moral courage to consciously disappoint your parents by choosing your own career? To lose close friends by expressing your true and controversial political opinions? Why does others' approval matter more than your own personal fulfillment? When did you start valuing others' opinions more than your own happiness? This is happening to you right now if you're thinking, "But I have responsibilities," when you're actually just afraid of being judged for making authentic choices. This leads us to the most terrifying and simultaneously liberating aspect: the price of freedom. Few have the courage to pay. For Nietzsche, definitively breaking the invisible but devastatingly real psychological chains required absolutely heroic and almost superhuman courage, something only a small elite of courageous spirits could achieve. It meant courageously becoming the conscious and deliberate creator of one's own moral values, instead of remaining a passive and unconscious heir to alien values systematically imposed by society, family, religion, and dominant culture. This necessarily implies accepting being misunderstood, rejected, severely criticized, and even actively hated by those you most love, respect, and value. An absolutely revealing 2023 MIT scientific study statistically demonstrated that only a measly 12% of people actually make important decisions based on genuine and authentically chosen personal values, while an overwhelming 88% follow pre-programmed social scripts in completely automatic and unconscious fashion. like sophisticated robots executing codes installed by others. Neuroscience confirms that creating your own values activates brain areas associated with creativity and well-being, but also generates intense anxiety because it contradicts our social programming to seek approval. Mahatma Gandhi heroically challenged the powerful British Empire completely alone. Nelson Mandela consciously preferred 27 years of brutal and dehumanizing prison to degrading and humiliating racial submission imposed by apartheid. Both deeply understood that some moral prices are absolutely worth paying, even when the entire world is violently against their most fundamental convictions. They chose psychological freedom instead of social security, authenticity instead of approval, truth instead of convenience. Today you face exactly the same existential choice. Do you have enough courage to choose a career your conservative parents consider a social failure? To end a relationship everyone thinks is externally perfect, but emotionally suffocates you. To radically change cities even when everyone says you're completely crazy? The most terrifying and disturbing question of all is, are you genuinely living your own authentic life or simply obediently executing a program others systematically installed in your mind since childhood? When was the last time you made an important decision you knew would disappoint people important to you? Can you do this without feeling paralyzing guilt? This is happening to you right now. If you're watching this video looking for validation for changes you already know you need to make, but are afraid to implement. Here's the brutal truth nobody wants to admit. You already know exactly what you need to change in your life to be free, but you're waiting for permission from others or courage that will never appear magically. The choice that defines your life. Nietzsche revealed to us the most disturbing and liberating truth of the human condition. Most people live like existential sleepwalkers, executing mental programs installed by society without ever awakening to question whether they really want that programmed life. Genuine psychological freedom requires terrifying courage, total willingness to be misunderstood, rejected, criticized, and even hated by those you love. But here's what he also discovered. Those courageous enough to pay this price discover something most will never experience. The indescribable sensation of being completely owner of yourself. I challenge you at this moment, in the next 7 days, consciously question a fundamental belief you've always accepted as absolute and unquestionable truth. It could be about career, relationships, money, family, any area where you follow unwritten but rigorously applied social rules. Do something small but authentic that you know others will judge. Observe your physical reaction to the fear of social rejection. That's your psychological slavery revealing itself. Leave in the comments your honest answer. When was the last time you did something you knew was right for you, even knowing others wouldn't approve? Or have you never had the courage for that? As Nietzsche prophetically said, no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. The question that defines your existence is, do you have the courage to pay that price, or will you continue being a comfortable psychological slave for the rest of your limited life?